One thing that caused me a lot of confusion when I moved to Linux from Windows was the directory structure. In Windows, each drive has its own directory tree. So you can start at the root directory, work your way down through each of the folders or directories, call them what you will, they're the same, and eventually get down to the point where you're trying to get to. In Linux, there's a single directory structure, and all of the drives are treated as files. Everything in Linux is a file. I want to show you my desktop system, but I want to describe it first. It's set up as dual boot. When I boot up, I'm presented with a menu, and I can either choose Windows 11 or Linux Mint at that point. I've got 5 drives in my tower, and before you laugh, let me explain that if I could put 6 in there, I would. 2 of the drives are solid-state drives that are referred to as M2 or NVMe. They're basically the newer solid-state drives that are about the size and shape of a stick of chewing gum. They're both mounted on the motherboard. One is dedicated to Windows, the other is Linux only. I also have 3 hard drives, spinning mechanical drives, that did fit in the tower, and I use those for data. Let's have a look at how the drives are assigned in Windows. These are my drives that Windows recognizes. On the C drive, I've got my Windows 11 operating system, and my data disks are drives D, E, and F. Windows recognizes my Blu-ray burner as drive H, standard DVD writer as drive I. I have a flash drive inserted into the G port, and I don't currently have one in the M, N, O, or P USB ports, but if I did, they would be recognized also. As I mentioned, each drive has its own folder structure. So here we are in the Windows 11 directory, and starting with the root directory, you can see all of the folders that fall underneath it. The users directory is where we spend most of our time, and I blew that up a little bit here. I've got 4 accounts. One is the admin with administrator rights, a default account that was created by the system, my Edward account, which is a standard user, not administrator, and public. I separated out the administrator function that has elevated privileges from my own system account for security reasons. Now in the G drive, I've got a flash drive with 2 folders in it, one with Python scripts and one with text documents. The Linux file system that recognizes what we have here starts with the root directory, and the file system has all of these folders in it. The home directory is equivalent to the users directory, and I have an Edward account with documents, downloads, music, pictures, videos, and pretty much the same thought process in Linux as Windows. You probably noticed that the Windows operating system does not recognize the solid-state drive with Linux installed. Let's find out why. We'll open the Start menu, and in the search box, type disks. These are all the drives that are recognized in the Linux operating system. So let's go to the 2 terabyte drive. In this partition, we have the Windows 11 operating system. It's formatted as NTFS. It's mounted in the Linux file structure in the MNT folder and this subfolder. That subfolder is the same name as the universally unique identifier. That's the identifier that's given to all of the data partitions that the Linux operating system has access to. So here we've got 0D6972C, etc. And that's the folder in the mount directory where this data is located. Let's look at the 1 terabyte disk. That is where I have my Linux operating system. It's formatted in ext4 format. Unfortunately, that is not recognized by Windows. The flash drive has 2 folders in it, one that has Python scripts and one that has some text documents. That is mounted in a different location. It's mounted in the media directory, Edward subfolder, and then the name of the drive. It also has a UUID, a universally unique identifier. It's a different format than those drives that are physically mounted in the system. This will be important to us. Okay, we've got hard drives that are in the MNT folder. We've got the flash drives that are in the media folder. What's the difference? Why is there a difference? To answer that question, we're going to get into the terminal, either by clicking the icon or by pressing Control-Alt-T on the keyboard. We're going to use the manual command, MAN, and we want it to tell us about the hierarchy of all of the folders that are in the Linux file structure. And the abbreviation for that is HIER. Here we are, we've got the description of the file system hierarchy. So we're going to scroll down a bit. And if we look at media, this directory contains mount points for the removable media, such as a CD or a DVD or USB sticks. The MNT directory is the mount point for temporarily mounted file system. We also have the option of unmounting or not actively using any of the drives that are physically present in the computer. So the bottom line is the media directory is for removable media, like a USB stick. And the MNT directory is for the file system, like the Windows hard drive or the data disks. So let's exit. All right, now that we know where everything is located, what if we go to certain locations on a frequent basis? Is there an easy way to get to those more quickly? And it turns out there is. Let's go to File Manager. And if we want to go, let's say, for example, to the C directory, C drive, to the users, and I'm going to pick the default account and documents. Now we've got some shortcuts in here that we can pretty much ignore, but I've got a couple of documents for illustration purposes. And let's say this has a lot of additional documents and subfolders within it that we use on a frequent basis. We can bookmark this location by selecting it in the menu at the top and click Add Bookmark. So now here we have our Documents folder on Windows 11. There's a bit of confusion here. This is called Documents, and under My Computer we have Documents. The one under My Computer is the documents under my account in Linux Mint. So my personal preference is to rename them. I'm going to select the one in Linux, right-click it, and rename it by going to the Start and just say Mint Documents. And our shortcut for the Windows 11 documents under the default user account I'm going to right click on that, rename it, hit the home key, say that's Win 11 documents. So now we know which document folder is which. This will be handy. I'm going to close out File Manager. This will be handy if we're using a program such as LibreOffice Writer. So let's go to the Start menu, Office, LibreOffice Writer, go full screen, and do a File Open. And down here we have our Windows 11 documents that we've previously bookmarked. So we can go right in here, go into our sample document, and open it. Modify that in any way we like, and save it back. So let's exit. Unfortunately, not all programs will open the File Manager. So let's go to Idle. If you do Python programming and install the Idle app, you can click File, Open to open a previously saved script. Unfortunately, we're starting off in the home directory with the user account in Linux Mint. And it doesn't appear that we're going to have that shortcut available to us like we had in LibreOffice. So how do we get to it? Let's get back into the Linux directory structure. We'll launch File Manager, and I'm just going to put this on the left-hand side of the screen by holding down the Windows key and press the left arrow. We also want to look at the disks at the same time. So we'll go back to the Start menu, in the search box, type disks. We want to go to the File System, to the Mount directory, and that gives us a list of all of the folders where we can find each of our drives. Now, to find out what they are, we need to come up with a little decoder sheet. Our 2 terabyte hard drive partition for the Windows 11 operating system is here, and we can see that the UUID ends with 0CD6. So here's 0CD6. The very first one is our C drive. If we go to our 4 terabyte hard drive and look at that partition, that UUID ends with CE65. Here we are, CE65. So that is our photos, video, and audio drive. The 2 terabyte hard drive ends with 8643 right here, and so on. So what I've done is come up with a decoder sheet. I did a simple screen clip, and for each of the drives, I made a note of what it was equivalent to in the Windows operating system. You don't need to do all of the full length of the UUID, just the last 4 digits would be sufficient. Now, in addition, we may want to look at any flash drives that we have mounted. If you recall, if we go to the file system, those are in the media folder. Here's the Lesage, and it's mounted in Media, Edward, and it has the name of the flash drive on it. So let's use that information with Idle. Now I've cheated and I've added another folder to the default directory in Windows 11, and you'll see that in a minute. So let's get back into Idle, do a File, Open, and we're back in the Linux Mint default directory for home. Over on the right, you can see we have an up arrow. That'll take us up higher. Let's just do this. Let's show the file structure for the file system. We're currently in the Edward home directory. So let's go up one level, and we'll do it here on the right. So there's the home directory. Go up one level again. And we want to get into the mount directory, MNT. And here's where the decoder sheet comes in handy. We know Windows 11 is that first drive. So that ended with 0CD6. Now we can walk our way down the path to users. Users on the left. The default. Go to the documents, and Python scripts. There's hello.py, hello.py. We can select that and open it. Unfortunately, that's the long way to get there, but sometimes that's the only way to get to a particular file or folder. I hope that wasn't too confusing. It probably was. So I'd suggest that you go through this a few times on your own and just practice getting into the mount directory and working your way through it to get to the different areas. And again, I think a decoder sheet, like I showed with the disks directory, disks app rather, would be very handy to have. So with that, I'll close the video.